Welcome into Sports Around the Bar, your weekly sports talk show. As always, I am Jake, your bartender, and I'm joined on center stool by Drew. And Drew, NFL action, man, it's already started. We got a bunch of trades going on the way. This is crazy because a couple years ago even, we wouldn't have seen this much action. But now it seems like GMs are getting much more aggressive, man. I, for one, think it's a good thing. I like to see all this kind of action in the middle of March.
I like it, too. It kind of it's football's still alive. Football's still living. I mean, you got the AAF and...
Even that, we didn't have that a couple of years ago. So, I don't know, Drew. We're getting longer into the year where football is still a relevant topic. And there's a lot more going on because, obviously, in years past, you were just waiting for free agency. Nobody's really making any trades because everybody's scared of getting ripped off and everything like that. These days, that's not the case, man. And we've seen a lot of trades. We're going to talk about a lot of them tonight.
What's going on, Nate? I'm glad you could join us for a live show, man. It's been a minute.
Absolutely. Why don't we start with Michael Bennett? I know everyone wants to talk Antonio Brown first, and we can do that. Let us know in the comments if that's where you guys want to start. But I think we should talk about Michael Bennett because this, to me, is an absolute steal. It's one that needed to be done by the Eagles because they had so much money tied up in that D-line. But I think they still did pretty well getting rid of him. What do you think?
It was the right move after they signed Brandon Graham to a long-term contract. It was the right move to move him on. Now, I think the Pats got a heck of a deal here. I mean, you're talking about a guy that had 9 sacks. You know, he's definitely getting in the back of the pocket with 15 tackles for loss and 30 quarterback hits. He is 33 years old, though. He has 2 years left on his contract.
Does it matter? I mean, when you're putting up numbers, I don't care what age you are, especially when you're trading a low-end pick. Now, if you want to talk about Antonio Brown versus this, I think it matters a lot more for that because you're sitting there saying, okay, he relies on his speed and everything. Michael Bennett's 33. Maybe I'll only get a year or two out of him, but when you're giving up a 5th-round pick, it's not the same 1st-round pick that seems to be the going price for Antonio Brown. I am more than okay with that. And they're really not even just giving up a 5th-round pick. They're giving up a 5th and gaining a 7th. So really, they're just moving down in the draft. This is the ultimate Patriots move. They never really trade picks away. They always just keep accumulating, keep accumulating. Doesn't matter where we're drafting. We're going to go take a guy and just see if we can get him in here.
What's going on, Nathan? George, what's up, man? Glad you guys could join us. And you got to remember also that we're talking 2020. This ain't even this draft, so it's not even going to take effect. They're going to, more than likely, if they go off and especially win a Super Bowl, I bet Michael Bennett says farewell to the NFL at 34 at that point.
Is that the ride off into the sunset moment?
It might be.
I don't know. I mean, there's also talk of his brother, Martellus Bennett, former tight end for the Patriots, coming out of retirement to play with him. So this is almost a package deal. I mean, you're already competing for a Super Bowl. Gronk is banged up. And now you're getting a tight end that might be able to come in and take some of the snaps away from him. And you're getting a pass rusher that's going to be able to replace Trey Flowers. Drew, I think this is a fantastic move by the New England. Does Philadelphia necessarily lose this trade? No, but they don't gain as much as New England does, right?
Right. And who wins this trade absolutely is the Patriots. There's no doubt about it. They got a plug-and-play right now kind of guy. Eagles, they get an extra 5th-round pick. Does that guy pan out? Who knows? Who
knows, but you get money off the board. And I'm going to kind of flip the script when we're talking about this a little bit later, when we're talking about the Case Keenum deal. But them getting this much money off the board for a 33-year-old that even though the Patriots needed, they could have gone in a lot of different directions. I still think it's a win for Philadelphia, not having to cut him and then just have him go sign with the Patriots anyway. So I think they did pretty well. Yeah. Let's next talk about Olivier Vernon going to the Cleveland Browns here. Obviously, they traded him for Kevin Zeitler, an offensive guard that's one of the better ones in the NFL for sure. Do you really see a winner in this trade, Drew?
To be honest with you, I think both of them win this trade. They also switch 4th and 5th round picks this year on the draft as well, including this. They both kind of get needs, except the Browns. The Browns are a little bit more of a question mark to me, but I'm going to go ahead and jump on the Giants side.
I think it's a need. I think they needed to get much deeper at pass rush. I mean, I think they had Ogba and Myles Garrett that pretty much played too many snaps last year. They kind of lost effectiveness as the year went on. They didn't get the pressure out of it. So to get a guy like Olivier Vernon for a guard that you already have a replacement for, I think it's a pretty good move.
Shay says, NFL update, Brown traded to the 49ers, $129 million, $40 million guaranteed, breaking news.
Well, if that is true, I'm not shocked. I mean, John Lynch, like I've said, has been one of the more aggressive GMs in the NFL. It wouldn't shock me at all if he did pull this move off. But is it a good move for San Fran? I've always said this is one of the likely landing spots. Does this turn them into the playoff team that I kind of expect them to be?
I mean, it helps. It helps it. There's no doubt about it. Let's get back to the Giants and Brown. Let's not ignore this.
We'll talk Antonio Brown in just a minute.
Exactly. We'll get back to him. Zeitler going to the Giants is obviously a need. This is huge. He's missed 0 games the last 4 years. It totally helps the Browns kind of open up cap space too, because it's a $12.4 million contract next year. One of the highest paid guards. in the NFL, and the Giants get a need, and it's crazy. It's huge. And then when you look at the Browns and you get Vernon, he's 28 years old, but you're sitting there pairing him with Garrett and Ogba. The thing is about it, though, with bringing them in, and I get the rotation, but you can't bring someone in like this and expect him not to be the starter. So does Ogba take a step back? Does someone move in? Does Ogba go in? Does Vernon go in on third downs? I mean, are they going to run 3 defensive ends with one sitting in the middle?
If I had to guess, I'd say Ogba's probably the odd man out of this. I mean, he didn't have the best year at all last year. He only had, I believe, 4.5 sacks, only about 30 quarterback pressures. So you really didn't see a lot out of a guy that played almost 500 snaps. I think he's going to be the rotational guy. I think you're going to see Vernon and Garrett as the starters, and then you've got Ogba, which is a pretty strong guy coming in as a number 3 that's going to rotate and spell those guys. He's still going to get about the same amount of play time, but technically, no, he won't be the starter.
I think they need to figure out how to get all 3 of them on the field at once. That's the most important thing to me. Ogba, is, even though he had a down year, he's still a good pass rusher. I mean, because, look, you got Myles Garrett, who's huge. He's definitely your number 1 guy. He's the guy that's going to get double-teamed. And Vernon, I don't think he's that number 1 guy, and I don't think Ogba is either. So you're throwing 2 number 1. It seems to be a little odd on the odd side. I get with the rotation, but their plan is to get all 3 of them in there. It'll be interesting to watch.
It will, and I still like Cleveland's move here. I still think they needed to add to the pass rush. What's going on, Ty? Good to see you in here as well. Also, I haven't seen anything on the Antonio Brown thing. Don't know if that's guaranteed or whether Shay's looking into the crystal ball right now. But I do believe with this Vernon trade, they are still the team that benefited the most out of this trade, bringing in a guy that you know can rush the passer. He can make an impact. He was with the Giants last year that didn't really have anything else, especially once Pierre-Paul was traded, and he was still pretty effective. I think putting him next to Myles Garrett, we're going to see the best of Olivier Vernon for the past couple of years at least. Going on to the other side, though, the Giants needed an offensive line. I mean, that's been their biggest need for the past 5 years almost, it seems like. They paid their tackle big money last year. Now you're putting a guard next to him that can really make an impact. I do like this move for them as well. But I got to question them. Who's going to play defense? Because right now they need help on the D-line. They need help at linebacker. They need help in the secondary as well. It seems like you keep subtracting from this defense. Nobody's going to be around to play this in 2019, right?
Right. You're absolutely right. I mean, last year they lost Eli Apple, and then Landon Collins didn't get signed. Now you're talking about Vernon being gone. I mean, there's definitely an issue on the defensive side, but if you don't have that cap space and you got to create somewhere to bring in these players offensively, I mean, when you think about the Giants, what do you think about? I think about explosive offense that did not explode. And why did they not explode?
Eli Manning.
Because their offensive line did not give Eli Manning time to throw the ball. Bring in a great offensive line like this and hopefully pick people up through the draft. Let's not forget this draft is littered with tons of talent on the defensive side of the ball.
It is.
And it's cheap. So let's say they shore this up. They keep Odell Beckham Jr. there with ignore all the trade rumors. They keep him there. You got Barkley,
yep.
And you draft a bunch of defensive players. Maybe your defense is good. Maybe it's middle of the pack.
One thing I will say is I'd rather have one complete side that's ready to go and then one really bad side than just 2 sides that really can't figure anything out and you're not good at either one. So I get it. They're focusing on offense right now, and I think they should because, like you said, they have Odell Beckham in his prime right now. That may not be around for too much longer. You have a quarterback in Eli Manning that's definitely not dodging the pressure. I know we're all speculating about them drafting a quarterback here. And even if they do, you still got to protect him. Unless you get Kyler Murray, I don't think anyone's going to be really that dynamic in the pocket that you can say we can live with a bad offensive line. So I like this move for them still, and I still believe. I mean, I think Cleveland won this trade from a technical standpoint, but I think the Giants got what they needed here.
I think so too.
The only other question mark for Cleveland is Austin Corbett going to step up? You know, 2nd-round pick last year. The reason this trade happened is because they had Corbett sitting behind Zeitler. And they said he's ready for more snaps. He's ready to be the starter. Even if you do see a little bit of a downgrade, do you think Corbett is going to be a quality player, or do you think they kind of made maybe a hasty move just throwing him in this early?
They obviously see something they like in him, but let's not compare him to Zeitler. I mean, Zeitler has been a great guard for them for a while now. So hopefully, he's going to be filling some big shoes, but hopefully he can do well to begin with. Ty says he wanted Brown to go to Green Bay. Fantasy stud.
He still might be out there, and supposedly they were interested. I was reading stuff saying they were making inquiries with along with pretty much the entire NFL. They were making inquiries of it, but it seems like to me the Steelers are stuck on that 1st-round pick. I think anything less than that, you'd probably get a GM that would pull the trigger for him. especially someone like Green Bay that can say, with Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers, we put him out in the field, and all of a sudden we're a playoff team regardless of who else is out here.
Right.
Maybe we're not a Super Bowl winner, but we're making the playoffs with those guys. I still think the Steelers are stuck in that first overall pick, though. And why don't we talk Antonio Brown next? I know we've got some other trades here. Why don't we talk Antonio Brown? Even if he does go to San Fran, like I've kind of been predicting for a while, even if he does not go to San Fran, I should say, the Buffalo rumors that everyone is quick to sit there and shoot down, it was real. There was real talk of it. I mean, the Bills thought they had the deal done, and then supposedly Antonio Brown kind of grenaded the thing and said, I'm not going to play for him.
That was the whole thing when everyone's saying the deal's going to be done by Friday. This was it. This was the team. These talks were 100% real, and when Brown finally got his ear into it, he made his point very clear. I'm not going up there.
Did they come off the number 9 pick?
I don't think we'll ever know that.
Yeah. I don't think they should. I think Buffalo might have dodged a bullet. Bad franchise, same thing. I think Buffalo dodged a bullet here by not giving up that pick number 9. If that's the case, it's too high of a draft pick for a 31-year-old, especially when you're not really playoff ready. I think they could be good. Maybe if they bring him in, we were talking about this before the show, maybe they do evolve into a playoff-ready team because they have a good defense. You know, they need to add wide receiving weapons. If they can land another free agent and draft a guy as well, you're talking about them being able to throw the ball. But they need a running back too. They need an offensive line help still. The defense, like you said, has regressed a little bit. I don't think they're beating the Patriots right away, but I think this would be a good step towards it.
The question is, are you going to throw your young rookie, well, now second-year starter quarterback with a 30-year-old drama queen? I mean, this guy's literally, he's drama in a locker room. I know everyone talks about, well, this didn't really happen until just recently. This guy has always been a character. And it seems like with the age of these wide receivers, when they realize, okay, I'm a Hall of Fame receiver, they expect more.
Absolutely.
And when Josh Allen can't get him the ball or overthrows him or underthrows him or throws it at his feet, I mean...
He's going to let you hear about it.
He's going to let you hear about it. And do you want that to be happening to your face of your franchise?
No, especially when he's this young. And I will say this. Ty in the comments said, the Giants need to get Russell Wilson. Let me ask you, Ty, do you see them going out and getting a guy like Kyler Murray and saying he can evolve into Russell Wilson? Because I've heard a lot of comparisons with it. Yeah. I don't necessarily see it. I don't think he's as talented throwing as Russell Wilson is. I think he's just as dynamic, but I don't think he has the frame Russell Wilson has. I don't think he's going to be able to take those hits. Going back to what you're talking about Antonio Brown, though, I think Buffalo made, like I said, they dodged a bullet. They got out of the way here because you're right. He's an absolute attitude problem. As much as you'd like to see this talented receiver on this Buffalo team that's been lacking a wide receiver for years now, you absolutely have to. There's no way you can not do it.
Right, absolutely. Nathan says Ballard won't do anything in free agency. I don't really see him doing either. And
I think he is. They have too much money. The Colts have over $100 million. They've got to do something.
I don't see him doing anything like... And don't get me wrong, I think Brown would be an ideal spot for them. Andrew Luck can handle the drama. T.Y. Hilton is a great receiver. You get two of them. I think it's a great landing spot for them. Nate says, what happened? I don't know if we went blank on our screen. We had some technical difficulties. If not, we're going to just keep on rolling. Nathan also said Brown is going to Oakland. Makes sense. But we'll see.
Absolutely. I think John Gruden's another guy that's not afraid to open the wallet. We'll see on that. Again, I think the market is starting to close on Antonio Brown because as we get closer to this free agency, teams are going to sit there and throw their hands up and say, if I can't get him, I got to solve this problem some other way. I think they're going to go out and reach for guys like Golden Tate and a few of these other receivers, maybe Des Bryant, and say, we'll just roll the dice with these guys instead of going after Antonio Brown and giving up a high draft pick. If the Steelers are going to get the most value out of this, they got to do it in the next couple days. And we've been talking about them needing to absolutely move him because they didn't want to pay him a roster bonus. They just wanted to be done with this. Do you think they'd sell out? Do they take a lower pick here? I would. Yeah. If I could get a second-round pick right now, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
But you know what? To be honest, when you asked if the Bills backed off of their 9 or they put their 9 pick in there, to be honest, I see their second and third being enough for Brown. I really do.
I do too, and I think if you can get a third-round pick, I'd like to see him at a lot of different spots. I think a lot of teams would go for that. They'd bite in that third-round tender. The question is Antonio Brown going to play for him? And he seems to be commanding the conversation by sitting there saying, I'm going to hold out if you trade me somewhere I don't want to go.
Yeah. Hey, guys, I just want to remind you we're going to do a fan and show mock draft, and there's still a bunch of teams out there. We still need some people picking up your team. If your favorite team out there, you want to draft for them, we're going to try to make this fun and get everyone involved with it. You know, and if you're uncomfortable picking, we can try to help you through that pick. Just go ahead and message us on our page or go ahead and write us in the show right now.
Absolutely. Also, going back to the comments here really quick, Ty says, you already know what Wilson is. I agree with you, but that's why he's more valuable, because you know he's a good quarterback. Whereas Kyler Murray, there's those question marks. If you can get him on a steal, I think it's fantastic for you. If you can get him in the end of the first round, if somehow he falls, that's great.
Yeah.
But you have to take that risk with the young guy. Russell Wilson, I understand what you're saying. The Giants would be better off getting a sure thing, but that means you got to pay for it. He's only got 1 year left on his contract, but with the franchise tag, the Seahawks could hang on to him for another 3 years. If you want to get him anytime soon, you're going to have to open the wallet and trade, I think 3 first-round picks here, Drew. Honestly, you're talking about a top 5 quarterback that's just now around 30 years old.
Yeah.
So
he's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere.
A couple other trades we want to talk about. The Cardinals have made a trade with the Steelers to get Marcus Gilbert, offensive tackle. They needed help on the offensive line, Drew. Is this a good move?
Well, what Gilbert was supposed to be, this would have been a great move. But this guy has missed 23 games in the last 4 seasons. This guy is just, he's a former shadow of what he was supposed to be.
Right.
I don't necessarily dislike this pick, but at the same time, it just seems to be like, hey, man, if you still have it in you, if you could stay healthy and you could play for us, you'd be a great tackle for us. But is it really the greatest move on, that the Cardinals could have done at this point in time? No, but at least they're focusing on what they need help on.
Now, George also says, watch Antonio Brown land in Miami or Detroit. Again, would he play for either of those teams? I think he's going to grenade any one of these deals because he's going to say, if I'm not going to a contender, I'm going to hold out. I'm not going to play for you. And as soon as he says that, the teams are like, okay, we're not interested. We're not giving a second-round pick. We're not giving a third-round pick.
Right.
We're not giving a first-round pick or a seventh-round pick for a guy who's not going to play the game for us. So I think all the power's in Antonio Brown's hands. We're starting to see a little bit of power dynamic swing towards the players because there's some guys that are willing to sit there and say, I'll take a year off. I won't get paid, and I'll just sit out of football if you send me somewhere I don't want to be.
Nate said definitely not Detroit, but out of those two, I think that's the one that makes the most sense.
I do too. You look at Miami, they're changing over systems and everything like that. I get it. They won 7 games last year, Drew, but we look at this roster, we picked them to win 2. Do you see an overnight change just by bringing Antonio Brown in? I think they win maybe a game or 2 extra, but yeah. I don't see them winning 9 games with Antonio Brown. Not with this roster, not with a dysfunction at quarterback.
So you don't even know who
not
the
with a change of
is.
scheme, everything else going on for Miami. I think this is the wrong time to bring a 31-year-old into the locker room. That's been an attitude problem.
Agreed.
Going back to this Cardinals trade with Marcus Gilbert, they only gave up a 6th-round pick. I know you're saying he was injured. I respect that. I understand that. But for a 6th-round pick, roll the dice. He's missed a lot of games. Maybe it was a fluke. Maybe it was just he had some injury troubles and he can get over it. For 6th-round pick, it's got to be worth it if you're the Cardinals and you've got the worst offensive line in football.
Yeah, no, like I said, at least what they're doing is focusing on the need, and there's no doubt about it. And a 6th-round pick, at this point in time, it's worth the trade.
Now, Nate also says that's more of him not wanting to play against the Packers more than anything. I agree with you on that. I wouldn't want to see him in Detroit either, not with the way Matt Stafford slings the ball. But again, just like we were talking about with Miami, is it the right move for Detroit to go and add this guy? Because I don't think even with Antonio Brown, they're a better team than the Chicago Bears or the Minnesota Vikings. They're still somewhere around par with Green Bay, and with Aaron Rodgers under center, I'd say it's about even.
Yeah.
So moving on, Drew, let's talk about our last trade of the day. Case Keenum going to Washington for a song. They swapped a 6th round for a 7th round pick. I can't look at this any other way. The Broncos got ripped off. John Elway made a bad trade. He made a bad trade for Joe Flacco, and then I think he made a bad trade getting rid of Case Keenum. And when I say bad, I think he overpaid for this stuff. I don't have a problem with the guys moving the directions they did, but giving up a 4th round for a guy like Joe Flacco that historically, since the Super Bowl that he won, has not been very good, and now you're going to go trade, basically just swap picks, move up 1 round in a 2020 draft for a guy that, again, the Washington Redskins desperately needed. They were going to start the season with Colt McCoy. How are you not getting more out of this?
But yeah, no, you're right. And luckily for the Broncos, Case Keenum was willing to restructure his deal. They restructured it. It's not going to cost them a giant amount of money to get him gone out of there, but it does save the locker room drama. And I'm just saying,
I don't care about drama. I just sit there and be like, day one, you're the sitting.
You don't want Case Keenum there, who started all of last year for you, have any kind of favoritism of any of these guys going, I want Keenum out there. I don't want Flacco. And that is there.
I understand.
There.
I do understand
so
that.
I think it was, let's go ahead, see what's out there. They found someone that's interested in doing something, and they went ahead and went for it.
I understand. What's going on, Sharif? Good to see you, man. Going back to the Case Keenum trade, though, Drew, look, to swap from a 7th to a 6th round pick, when you're talking about the Washington Redskins starting the season with Colt McCoy, Alex Smith, who's more than likely not going to be there, but let's say he plays. He threw for 200 yards a year, or a game last year, Drew. They had nothing going on at quarterback, and you're going to only swap a 6th for a 7th round pick. They should have held their feet to the fire, and they should have been more willing to just say, you know what, we'll eat the contract and just cut Case Keenum. Instead, John Elway capitulated. We've been talking about John Elway being this great GM and everything because he had the one Super Bowl win with Peyton Manning at the end of his season, or at the end of his career, but I mean, this is a loss. This is a huge loss. You had all the leverage because Washington desperately needed a quarterback.
Right.
Nick Foles seems like he's married to Jacksonville, so they're not going to get him. The only other guy out there is Teddy Bridgewater. And you're talking about a guy that hasn't started in 4 years. He's coming off a major injury. He looked bad when he played for the Saints this year. I get it was with backups and everything in the last last game of the year. But they had no other options, and they still wrecked you on this trade. They did. They blew up John Elway. I can't sit there and say this is a win for anyone but Washington.
Yeah, no, I believe Washington totally won this trade. And he kind of stole my thunder, and so did Sharif. Sharif said Washington should be trading for Rosen or signing Bridgewater. I agree. And I think that's why the Broncos panicked. I think that's exactly why the Broncos panicked and said, no, take this guy, and we'll just give you this. I really honestly do. Because I think it was kind of a panic move. They didn't want him there. They didn't want to cause issue in the locker room. And they're going, Washington's interested, but look at all these other. There's Bridgewater. There's Rosen that's possibly coming, could possibly come free. I think it was a panic move by him. I really do.
I understand that. Maybe if they would have traded a 2nd or 3rd round pick for Rosen, we'd be sitting there saying, oh, the Broncos should have moved him for nothing instead of just cutting him. I get that, but I mean, we're talking about literally nothing here. We're talking about moving up at the bottom end of the draft.
He was not going to take a cut and restructure a deal. This restructure the deal came with the trade.
And I understand that. I do understand that. Case Keenum wants the chance to start, and he probably deserves another chance to start. I mean, you look at what he did in Minnesota. He's very good at dodging pressure. He probably won't have to do that as often in Washington if they can keep this offensive line healthy. And he wants to play. He wants the chance to prove that, hey, last year was just because the Broncos suck, not because I can't do anything. The problem is he's going to Washington that have no receivers, that have a tight end that's made of glass, that basically only have a running game. So even if this is going to work, if we're talking about this, they're going to have to add multiple receivers here, or we're going to be talking about the same thing. Everyone's going to be sitting there saying Case Keenum's not a good quarterback when he's dealing with no weapons and constantly under pressure because all the offensive linemen are hurt. I mean, this is almost a lateral move for him.
I hear you. George says, yeah, the Redskins aren't going to be any of a better team with that trade. Man, I don't know, man. Colt McCoy or Case Keenum. I think, and trust me.
Case Keenum, hands down.
I
like
trust
Colt
me, and
McCoy,
I am not a Case Keenum fan by any means of the word, but he's a better quarterback than Colt McCoy.
Absolutely. There's no debate in my mind. In my mind, it's night and day. You're talking about a quarterback that is a fringe starter in Case Keenum versus a guy in Colt McCoy that is a career backup and probably shouldn't be viewed by anything more than that. I mean, this is the guy that we were talking about was too small coming out of college. I know he won a big bowl right before he came out. I don't think it was a national championship, but he won a bowl right beforehand, and he had a lot of hype going around him going into the NFL. But nobody at this stage of their career is like Colt McCoy as a starting quarterback, and we can trust our franchise to him, right?
Yeah, I agree. So,
also, I'm kind of with Nathan here. Sharif says Teddy Bridgewater is better than Case Keenum, and Nathan says no. Look, they're both about 180-yard passers, right? The only difference I'd say is Case Keenum hasn't had the major injury, and Case Keenum is probably better under pressure than Teddy Bridgewater is. Case Keenum, for all of his flaws throwing the ball, for all of his flaws with his arm strength and everything else, is very good at dodging pressure and making things happen when he's under duress. I don't really see that with Teddy Bridgewater. Bridgewater, to me, is like one of those, he's like the 35th best quarterback in the NFL. He's a backup, maybe a high-tier backup, but to me, you can't go into the season saying Teddy's going to get us to the playoffs.
I'd like to see Teddy Bridgewater get a chance. I'd really honestly like to give him a chance.
We had a chance in Minnesota.
Before his injury, he was the starter of the Minnesota Vikings.
But not a good one. That was, if you remember, they weren't very good when he was there.
The team wasn't very good.
True. They weren't at their apex. They weren't sitting right where they are right now, where they have exactly.
They didn't.
Well, they did have Thielen. It's just he wasn't a star, and that was a lot of that was.
I'd have to look. I don't remember them having Thielen.
He's 28. He's been there for 5 years now, I think. It's just he got lost in the shuffle. He was there with Teddy Bridgewater. He didn't play. And you're right. They didn't recognize the talent they had with him. But you're right. I mean, they definitely were still trying to figure out wide receiver at that point. I'm not going to sit there and say it was easier because Teddy Bridgewater was there, but it wasn't. You can't put it all on Teddy Bridgewater either. I look at this guy and I sit there and say he's a very good backup. I'm not going into this. You say you want to give Teddy Bridgewater a chance. Would you be comfortable if the Chiefs were like, Teddy Bridgewater is going to be our quarterback next year?
No.
Exactly.
But that's because
you want him to have a chance, but you don't want it on your team.
But if I was a Titans fan and they're like, hey, do you want Teddy Bridgewater or Marcus Mariota? I'd be like, give me Bridgewater.
No. Okay, look, I'm the biggest Marcus hater in the universe. I'd still take Marcus Mariota and his glass arm / the rest of his body over Teddy Bridgewater. I really would. I think Teddy Bridgewater got dealt a bad hand with that injury and everything. I don't want to crap on him too much here, Drew, but he's not a starting quarterback. Not in the NFL. Not if you want to go anywhere. He's like Tyrod Taylor, where you put him in there and maybe you win 5 or 6 games and everyone says, oh, well, if we just stack everything up around him, maybe this turns into something. But no, he's not beating Drew Brees. He's not beating Tom Brady.
I don't know how you can say that. I don't know how you can say that. We don't know. Thailand said announced AB to Carolina. I love how everyone just wants
Antonio AB on their Brown team. Somewhere. Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's about 40 teams out of the 32 in the NFL that seem to have been linked with this Antonio Brown trade rumors. I mean, everybody seems to be in the mix except for Pittsburgh. If you're Big Ben, I don't understand how you're not calling him up right now and be like, look, man, we've had our differences, right? Let's sort this out because I want to beat the Patriots one more time before I retire.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. Right?
No, it's not. But I would try. If it was you, wouldn't you at least make the phone call?
You know that's not going to happen, right?
You didn't answer my question.
I'm not Big Ben. I don't rape women in the bathroom, so you can't sit there and ask me what I would do if I was Big Ben, because I wouldn't do a lot of the crap he does. But if I was a quarterback and I knew that he was my best weapon, and there was difficulties, and I know that I was not going to win because he was leaving, or it was a less of a chance to win because he was leaving, you're right. I would call him, and I would try to fix the differences. But I think both these guys are big. Both are hot-headed. I think they both have issues on and off the field, obviously. It's probably best they separate.
Yeah. Now, George kind of agrees with us. He says the Redskins are definitely better. He says they aren't going to be a better team with that trade. I take it back. He disagrees with us. Look, I think it's options. I think it's better than Colt McCoy coming in and you just rolling the dice on a guy that also got hurt this year pretty early on into his starting career. You don't want to be into a situation like last year where Josh Johnson is the starting quarterback, right? You don't want to go in there and say it's week 4 and Josh Johnson's got to finish out the year for us. So them bringing on any number of quarterbacks, to me, is still a good thing in Washington. Whether you believe in Case Keenum or you don't, to trade literally nothing to get a guy like Keenum on a cheaper deal, that's a home run. That's a great, that's the perfect scenario.
I'm getting you a Case Keenum jersey. That's what's just going to happen. He's going to be in a Redskins
I'll take
Case
it.
Keenum jersey.
I'll take it.
Nate said he'd lie through his teeth if he was Ben. Michael's telling me to whoa, 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 whoa. I think he's telling me to whoa, whoa. And George says burn, but it's true. Dude, it's so true, man.
And Michael Davis also says they may not be getting better, talking about Washington, but he thinks the mission was to not get any worse. And this makes sure you don't get any worse. I mean, let's not pretend like Alex Smith was lighting it up. They still need weapons. That's the biggest concern.
It's going to be another year for him to be coming back.
Okay, we're going to move on here, Drew, really quick. But before we do that, talking about Washington, the final thoughts here, I want to know, if you're the Washington GM right now, if you're Dan Schneider, the owner, and your guy is there at pick 15, let's say everyone else passes on some of these quarterbacks, or the guy that you like falls to you at pick 15, do you still draft him, or do you bet on one of these veterans?
Yes. Yeah. And if your guy falls, there's a guy way down the line, if it's your second round pick or your third round pick, and you're in love with this guy, you pick him. You absolutely pick him. It just depends on who it is when he fall into it. Now, because of this move, I don't think it's worth them trading up. I think they should stay exactly where they are and let the pieces fall like they do.
Especially this year. If this was last year and we're like, there's Baker Mayfield who might be an elite quarterback. There's Sam Darnold who might grow into being an elite quarterback. There's Josh Allen who nobody's really sure about. Lamar Jackson in the mix that maybe if you run really creative stuff, and remember, I'm a Lamar Jackson hater apparently. If you run creative stuff, he can be a good quarterback and get your team a lot of wins. And then worst case scenario, Josh Rosen, who a lot of the experts agree that he just needs more around him. If it was last year, I'd say you can even still trade up.
Yeah.
This year, though, I don't think Dwayne Haskins is going to be an elite quarterback. I think the best case scenario, you're looking at Kirk Cousins. That if
you're
you
breaking Michael Davis's heart right there.
Well, I know he's an Ohio State guy, but I don't know how to tell you this, Mike. Ohio State quarterbacks tend to not pan out very well, no matter how good they look in college. I think Haskins is just the next guy in line for that. I think he's better than guys before. I think he's better than Terrell Pryor. I think he's better than Braxton Miller. I don't think he's switching to wide receiver anytime soon.
Yeah, I think he'll stay quarterback his whole NFL career.
But I don't see him being the next big thing. Going just really quick, finishing my point here, Drew. when you're talking about this, if this was last year, I wouldn't fault the Redskins for trading up. This year, where there's no clear-cut guy that you're like, he's going to be a good quarterback, or we believe he can be a good quarterback, I say sit tight. And if you want to pass this year and wait till next year, kick the can down the road, I say there's no problem with that at all.
I think it's worth taking a quarterback at some point in time. Just depends on who falls to you and who you're in love with. George says they had Alex Smith last year, and they have the same season at best. Man, but you got to think about what was going on around there. They lost guys. They had no receiving core at all. They finally had a tight ends that stayed around, but they're aging. I mean, Alex Smith did the best he could. And Alex Smith is not Drew Brees. He's not going to throw, for 400, 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's not his game. So I agree with you. The record ended up being the same, but the team that I saw, the Redskins, it was a different team in my opinion.
Just really quick, Sean asked, what about the trade for the Browns just made? Who won that? Just, Sean, I know you're a big Browns fan. Let me just tell you, I think this is a win-win. I think both teams got something they needed, and both teams got good players out of this. I like what the Browns got with the replacement coming in for Zeitler and everything, but I think we both agreed both teams benefited from this trade.
Yep.
Also, going on here, Drew, I want to talk about the Rams signing Eric Weddle here. This is a big move, especially before official free agency opens up to get a guy like this. LaMarcus Joyner, I think it's clear, is not coming back to the Rams.
Right.
Do you see this as a good move by the Rams, bringing in a 34-year-old veteran, especially at this kind of money, or do you think they overpaid a little bit?
Well, that's kind of the typical Rams so far, is they kind of overpaid for some of these veteran players. But I like this pickup. Eric Weddle is obviously still playing at a high level, even at 34. His game has changed a little bit. He used to be more of that big hitter. Now he's kind of more laying back. But 2 years, $12.5 million, a little over $5 million guaranteed. It was worth the pickup.
Exactly. 10.5 of that is the base salary. So if he sticks around, he's going to get most of that money. He's pretty much guaranteed as long as he stays on the roster. And at 34, I don't think you can ask for a lot more than 5.5 guaranteed. I think Eric Weddle made out like a bandit here.
Yep.
Like I said, I thought he was a $2.5 to $4 million safety, and he wound up getting about 5.5 a year as long as everything plays out in his favor and he stays on the team. Also, Nate says he just tagged us in some Mariota highlights. I'm not worried about the highlights because he makes flash plays. What I'm worried about is the rest of the game where he sucks.
And then Sharif has a comment about my hoodie, man. I think I'm going to buy you a Chiefs hoodie. Is that what you need? You need to represent me?
I think he's already got the Ravens. I mean, I feel like if they would have met in the playoffs, he wouldn't be talking as much about the as much about the Chiefs hoodie. Also, Sharif says the Titans should bring back Kerry Collins. Look, if he can still throw, I'd take him. Honestly, the way it's going, we've got the defense.
Bridgewater?
We've got the defense. I think we have some young playmakers that would be a lot better if Marcus wasn't throwing him the ball.
Real quick, I really hope Bridgewater gets a chance to start, and I hope he proves you wrong.
Well, one thing I'd say, I'd take him in Tennessee. I'd take him over Blaine Gabbert as our backup and give him the chance to compete with Marcus, but they're not going to do that because we don't take any risks.
I said that and you didn't like it.
No, you said, will we sign him and just take him and play him right away? And no, I wouldn't want it to be out-and-out Teddy Bridgewater, but I'd give him the chance to compete. Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit more NFL news here. The Dolphins released Danny Amendola, saving them $6 million on their cap. Did I see this coming?
Did we all see this coming? Last year we were like, what is up with this signing? It's the worst thing ever. They gave him $12 million on a 2-year contract, and he didn't even make it through one. Drew, I look at this, and I say he's going to go run back to the Patriots, and it's the right fit. Because you look at the Patriots last year, we're like, who's catching the ball? They needed an Amendola come playoff time. I get it. They still got the Super Bowl win. Edelman stepped up when they needed him to, but they could have used him in those first 4 weeks, and they probably could have used him in the last 4 where they were really slumping. I think Amendola back to the Patriots makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's probably the only place he's going to find a home is there. Nate says, stop with the Bongwater talk. He's trash. Another hater, man. Another hater. And Sheree said Ravens did sack Mariota 11 times. Hashtag just saying.
Who sacked him?
The Ravens and Mariota.
They did, and that was fantastic. Let me just tell you that everything about the Titans line being vaunted and as good as it is, and they're just not playing well, went out with that game. I mean, they absolutely got destroyed. And let me tell you, I about had an aneurysm watching that game, Drew. I was basically reduced to tears. Also, a lot of that was Mariota's fault too. I don't think you can put all of that on the Titans' offensive line. He moved into a lot of sacks, and I think that's another reason he needs to get out of here because for all of his mobility that everyone likes talking about, I've never seen anyone step into more sacks than Marcus Mariota. So,
a little bit more news. The Lions released guard T.J. Lang to save themselves $8.5 million against cap. Talk about a player that I still think can play at a high level, just needs to be a lot cheaper contract. Now is a free agent.
I agree. I absolutely agree. I think it's a good move for any team, any team that can sign this guy on the cheap. You're getting a good offensive guard that can hold his own. And in the NFL, it's a commodity position. We don't value it like we do tackle, but when you have that good offensive guard, especially as good of a pass blocker as TJ Lang is, it's always an upgrade when you bring him in. I think somebody's going to be very lucky that the Lions couldn't afford to pay him.
I think so too.
Going back to the comments really quick here, Michael Davis says the Redskins did great with Alex Smith playing, even with the injuries, and then they plummeted after he went down. You are right about that, Michael, but they did it with him throwing 178 yards a game. They weren't winning because of Alex Smith. They were winning because of the defense, and then that 178 yards turned into about 87.
Whoa. You're right. He didn't light it up, but you know what he wasn't doing? Turn the ball over.
That's true. And when you got a defense like that, you can just play field position and win, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's basically what it was.
And just like his next comment, I think they were 5-2 before they went to 5-3, so they were in a winning column. I believe it was 5-2. I think then they went to 5-3, and then it was all downhill from there.
Finally, the Jaguars released their entire defense. Also, no, I'm kidding. But they did release Malik Jackson. They released Carlos Hyde. They released Tashawn Gibson.
And 2 others as well.
Exactly. This is all money. This is Nick Foles' money, Drew. They're going to bring him in. I think that's the done deal. Nobody
all together.
Everybody knows, but nobody's talking about
in cap space.
Yeah, and they're going to give about 23 to 25 of it to Nick Foles. The question is Nick Foles good enough for that? I don't think it matters. I think you have to take this risk when you've seen what Blake Bortles has done last year. You can't win with a guy like that. If you get incrementally better, I think it's the move you got to make.
You're going to see kind of Kirk Cousins kind of contracted this. It's not going to be no 5 years. It'll probably be like 3 years, maybe 2. And he's going to be big money right off the bat, signing bonus. It might even be all guaranteed for all we know.
I think you'll see go ahead.
But this is the right move. This is the right move for them because they need a quarterback. That defense at one point in time was the best defense.
Absolutely.
And they're just...
It won't be without Malik Jackson because even though he had a bit of a down year last year, he was kind of overshadowed by some of the other defensive line play. He is still an impact player. I think he had a bit of a down year. I still think he's the better D tackle, and they let him walk on this deal to bring in Nick Foles. That shows you how determined they are to fix this offense. Also, going back to this really quick, I think when you talk about Nick Foles going there, you said you don't think he's going to get a 5 or 6 year deal. I think he is. I think you're going to see a lot of that front-loaded guaranteed money, but it's going to be big money if he sticks around. I think they're going to have to just figure out. I really don't see him leaving the Eagles for a 1 or a 2 year prove-it deal. I think he's going to go get paid for multiple years, and that was talked about before he even opted out of his contract, right. I'm sure.
George, you said, what are they giving for Foles? He's a free agent. They don't have to give anything. They can just sign him to a contract. And then Nate said, Big D Nick is an upgrade by far.
Pay the man. Well, they're about to. Like I said, they just freed up a lot of cap space for him. But does the rest of the defense get worse because you're bringing this guy in there? And is it worth it to get better at quarterback? I'm saying yes right now. But if you go from like the 4th to 5th best defense, even in this 5 or 6 win season, and drop down to somewhere mid-tier because you're letting all these guys go, we might see them back in the same spot next year because they still need offensive weapons. They still need health in the offensive line. They need guys that are going to play 16 games. They haven't had that. They need Leonard Fournette to play better.
Yeah.
They got a lot of questions in Jacksonville.
And let's not forget, Nick Foles has been around. He's played other places and not succeeded or done well there. So
Case Keenum beat him out it was St. Louis back then, but Case Keenum beat him out for that. Yeah,
and that is an issue. I mean,
so give me that jersey.
So you're talking about a guy that's going to get paid big money. That's why I think it's going to be more of a 2-year, 3-year deal, and let him earn that bigger, longer contract.
Also, Nate says, sorry, no filter right now. He's had a couple. Look, we have 2, Nate, and it's the internet. Anything goes, man. All right? Well, I take it back. Not anything. Censor a little bit, but
we try to keep our language down just in case. We don't know what our viewers are. We don't want to make anyone upset. But trust me, outside this show, I talk.
We've said it all before. Let's just say that. Also, just going back to this really quick, I think Jacksonville, you talk about the moves Indianapolis is going to make with this $100 million worth of cap space. Andrew Luck coming back and seeming like he's better than ever. Talks about Antonio Brown, talks about Le'Veon Bell, talks about all these free agents because they have so much money and already a playoff team. And then you look at Houston, that's already in the playoffs. They have Deshaun Watson. They have the future. That you got to do something. This is the right move, Drew. If you're going to compete, you got to be aggressive. Jacksonville, if nothing, has been aggressive in the past few years. And I think maybe this is the move that puts them in 3rd place over my Titans and pushes them down to 4th. All right, our final topic of the day. I want to talk about the LSU coaching scandal for the NCAA. We're going to change gears a little bit, talk college basketball here. Will Wade, if you haven't heard, has been indefinitely suspended by LSU following the FBI probe where they caught him saying he made a, quote, strong-ass offer to a player in order to get him onto the team. Drew, we all kind of, like, nobody hears enough of a pearl clutcher to say, I can't believe they're paying these college kids to play basketball, right? But how big of a deal is this?
Oh, man.
Because there's reportedly more than just LSU's coach on this probe. They've got supposedly 2 or 3 big programs.
It depends on how butthurt you want to be. I mean, this is no surprise. We already know this happens. It happens year in and year out. You're talking about young kids that have made zero money. A lot of them come from poor families, and they're sitting there getting offered all this stuff, going to a college that's going to cost that family money to go to. Because they got to pay for board, they got to pay for books, they got to pay for that child to eat.
I think more than that, you just hit it with that third one. It's not about the money on campus. It's about you're setting up my family who has never really had anything.
And I'm just getting at the point is these kids aren't going to go somewhere unless you offer them the dough. That's what's going to happen. This happens all the time. It's all over the place. I kind of just wish the NCAA would get over it, pay their athletes, and move on.
Well, you said lives. You were about to say employees. That's basically what they are. And then they're sitting there not paying them. It's not right. Look, as bad as we want to sit there and come down on Will Wade saying you're a cheater and everything else, everybody's doing it. Coach K's doing it. Kentucky's doing it. Everybody out there is doing it. There's Tennessee's doing it. The schools I root for are doing it.
Bill Self, Roy Williams, all the big
every
names
major
in college
program
basketball,
has their hands in the cookie jar on this.
No
Let's just bring it out into the light and say we're going to pay these guys. Enough of the BS. Let's just get out there and figure out what works. I mean, college basketball makes how many millions or billions of dollars a year?
Almost $1 billion every year.
So let's share the love with the guys that are actually making it happen, and let's just go out and pay them. I get it. Guys love college basketball because it's for the love of the game, because it seems like they care about the game more than everybody else. But guess what? They're already getting paid, and they still care about the game. Yeah. It's still going to be there. Just get it done. Yeah. I don't think this is a big deal. I think Will Wade is going to kind of be a bit of a martyr here because he did get busted. But I can't sit there and say that he needs to be crucified, that we need to come out there and be. This isn't like Spygate when it came out for the Patriots, because nobody else was recording other teams and copying them like that. Right. It's not like a lot of other cheating instances in the NFL, because not everybody's doing that. Everybody is doing this.
Right, and it's not it's a harmless crime. It's not hurting, or like Penn State.
It's not hurting anybody because everybody's doing it.
And they deserve to get things knocked back on them. But with this, it's ridiculous. That LSU should not lose anything. I don't think any team should. Now, if that organization, that college decides that that's not what they want for their organization, which I guarantee the people that would kick him out were the ones that probably gave him the money to do it, that's up to them. But in my opinion, like I said,
you make a
pay
good
the
point.
athlete.
You make a good point. The AD, I'm sure, was absolutely responsible for making sure he got suspended indefinitely, everything. Do you think this is going on without the AD knowing that all these finances are transferring to the players? No, this is a fall guy scenario. And if anything, I can sit there and say he's an idiot for not having an intermediary between him and the player. This should have been an assistant coach. This should have been a booster or somebody that is not directly tied to you, so you can sit there and throw your hands up and say, it wasn't me.
Right.
But we all know this is going on. It's going up even higher than Will Wade. This isn't anything that it's all on him. Look, it's ridiculous. It really is. That we're even talking about this being an issue. Just pay the guys and be done with it.
Yep.
I want to address one final point before we get out of here, Drew. There's people saying LSU should forfeit the tournaments and everything like that. They should leave, the March Madness. They shouldn't be in that tournament either. It's ridiculous, okay? How many other guys on this team did not get paid, have busted their ass, and have not been involved in this at all? You can't take that away from them.
How many of the ranked teams have paid players?
Exactly.
Hey, guys, I just want to remind you again, we are doing a mock draft involving all you guys. Pick your team. Let us know who you want to pick. If you have any questions, by all means, ask us. Go ahead and message us. Go ahead and message us now if you want to. Grab your team while you still can. Some are still out there. We want to make this fun. We want to involve everybody. It's going to be coming up here soon, guys. Let's go ahead and grab teams while you can.
Absolutely. We still have about 10 to 15 spots open, so if you are interested in being the GM for your team in this mock draft, even if you're a little shy, let us know, because we're absolutely here to help you. And we'll give you pretty much every resource you need. So if you're interested in drafting for your team and saying, this is what I would do, and representing your squad, let us know in the comments. Let us know. You can send us a message too, and we'll make sure we get you your team, or maybe another team if yours is already taken.
Yep, definitely. Nate's trying to claim Green Bay.
It might be taken. I will check with you, Nate. I'll hit you up after the show and let you know. If not, if you're interested in anyone else, feel free to let us know if you have an AFC team you like or anything else like that. Also, Sharif was asking if LSU is ranked. They are ranked. I think they're somewhere around number 10. Don't hold me to that. They are ranked, and I believe they're one game away from winning the SEC as well. If they win and Tennessee loses, I think they win. So this is an important game. They're talking about suspending these guys for this final game of the season coming up tomorrow, I believe. This is really big, and it couldn't have come out at a worse time. So it's almost like you wonder if they've been holding a lot of this information back until it could really hurt LSU.
It's a shame.
Absolutely. All right, Drew. Just really quick, let's run through these comments and then get out of here. He said the same shit happened to his Arizona men's hoops team. Yeah, and supposedly there's a lot of people caught up in this probe too. It's not just LSU. I've heard Creighton might be involved, but I don't know about that for sure. There's going to be some fallout to this. The question is going to be, how does the NCAA respond, and how are they going to mess this up? Because they're going to. But how are they going to mess this up?
Oh, man. Michael Davis said he'll take them all then. Hey, you did help us on our first mock draft. I remember that. You did
Absolutely,
a great job.
Mike. If there's a team you want to represent, or if you're open, feel free to let us know because we'll get you penciled in. Also, Sharif says, conspiracy theory, Sean Miller will be let go by former AZ Hoops player Luke Walton and will be the next AZ Hoops coach. I don't know about that. I think you could do a lot worse, though. I mean, if you're AZ and you're bringing on a guy that used to coach the Lakers, I think is a great move.
Yep.
All right, Drew, special thanks, man. We've got some guys we want to thank here because it's been a fun show.
Thank you guys so much for all the comments, likes, and shares. Help us beat Facebook. They're a terrible organization, but here we are on it anyways. And I just want to appreciate all you guys for joining us tonight. But special thanks to Nate, Nathan, George, Shay, Ty, Sharif, Michael, Tylon, and Sean. You guys are all awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yep, and Nate, we're glad you could catch a live one too, man. It was more fun with you. Sharif, more fun with you. Everybody Drew mentioned and everyone he didn't, the show was better because you were a part of it, and we appreciate that. So for Sports Around the Bar, I'm Jake, your bartender. This is Drew, and we will catch you guys next time.
See ya.